Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof For BJJ podcast. I'm JT, and I'm here with super sinister Joey.
Call me Sinistro.
Yes. But
Wait, don't.
No.
I was cracking some jokes about that at the open mat the other day. I was like, maybe it was poor taste.
Yeah, too soon.
Anytime I was turtled,
Yeah.
I was like, 46 million.
Yeah, I know you were saying that. It's like,
It was kind of funny at the time. I was like, poor taste.
Yeah.
But hey,
I mean, it all works out in the end.
we're all here to have a good time.
The man gets his money, and that's how it goes. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you have been caught in a street fight or, unbeknownst to you, been attacked, and then you're in the wildness.
Yeah, street fight is one thing. Being rolled or like being robbed, it's kind of,
And a group of people.
Yeah.
It's many versus one. And that's a tough situation. And both Joe and I have experienced similar, well, I'm not going to say similar because I don't know the full extent of Joe's story, but it's in our younger days. So mine kind of went down when I was 13. I was in year 7. And that had a whole lot of, we were talking about traumatic experiences, how these things can kind of scar you, but then galvanize a certain drive in you as a person. So even though at the time it could be viewed as really terrible and tragic in some ways, it can help build you to be a stronger person. So we're going to talk about these kind of things today. So do you want to lead us off, Joe?
Go on. Yeah, so I was, I guess I was the same, like 13 or 14, year 7 or year 8, which for overseas listeners, that's
junior high.
Yeah, the first year of high school. And so at the time, I used to fuck around with martial arts, right? Like did a bit of shit, but I wasn't like regularly trained. I just played soccer back then, football. But I was hanging out with a bunch of kids at school, and we were all into like smoking cones, like smoking heaps of weed. And so weekends were like, whatever, you just cruise over to someone's house, sit in a room, smoke a bunch, go to McDonald's or whatever, and then catch the bus home. That was kind of, what weekends looked like. And so we're at Des Moines McDonald's.
Okay.
We'd been over at one of the boys' houses, and it was, I think this will speak to some people. Like the group that I was with were kind of that sort of group where you're like, this is my crew, these are my guys. But they weren't we weren't super tight. There weren't deep bonds there. It was kind of just we're all hanging because we're all hanging. Yeah. And maybe with a couple of them there was more of a bond, but there's a couple others there that were just like whatever. Anyways, we're at McDonald's. It's late and we've eaten some food, and I think we'll probably high or something. And I remember we're walking out of there. There's probably 5 of us, and we're walking out of there back up to the bus stop. And as we're leaving McDonald's, I see this other group of kids who are a little bit older than us, who have kind of scoped us, and they're jumping the back fence of McDonald's while they're kind of looking at us. It's like they've spotted us and they're jumping. And I'm like, fuck are they setting up? Because we're headed in the same direction, but they're jumping the back fence. We're walking up the road. It's a main road. And then we enter the arcade, which is like one-way brick tunnel that goes to the supermarket.
Oh, goodness.
And we get into the thing, and I'm like, and none of us are really saying much, and I'm like thinking of these kids, and we get into the arcade, and then we hear these kids yell out to us, "Hey!" And we look back, and at the end of the tunnel, there's this group of I don't know, 7 kids.
Sure.
And we look back, and then I look to my friends, and they've hit the bolt.
Oh,
they've just started running.
Whoa!
And instantly, I'm like, "You fucking idiots!" Because now we're prey.
Yes.
And these kids just fucking start hammering towards me.
Oh, no.
So I hit the sprint, and we're just running through this back car park, and these kids are chasing me, and we all just split in different directions. Yeah. And I go down this one-way street it's a wide street. It's full of unit blocks, right? Like apartments.
Yeah.
And I'm by myself, and I'm fucking sprinting down these apartments, and I'm like looking into these. All the apartments have like underground parking. Right. And I'm looking into that, and I'm like, I'm just going to go up one of these. Yeah. And so I just fucking enter this car park, big wide car park, underground. And I'm running through it, and I'm like, I'm just going to get to the back of this thing and then escape to wherever the fuck. Yeah. And the fucking car park, it's just single story. It's just one sort of basement car park. it's sealed
Oh, no.
at the back. It's completely sealed brick wall, and then there's just all the car parks. And I fucking get to the back, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I turn around and look, and there's these 7 kids just standing there waiting at the entrance. And I like walk back towards them, and then they come to me, and all I remember is one kid's like, "Why'd you run away, cunt?" Something like that. And the dude, someone hits me with something. Yeah. Someone hits me with something. Some dude grabs me. He hits me with something, and they're like, "Give us your fucking money. Give us your shit." And so I had like my wallet, and I don't know if I had a mobile phone back then. I think it was just a wallet.
Right.
It was probably a wallet that had been stolen from somebody else. You know, so, but,
miscellaneous.
But I was like, fuck, take that. And I remember I got hit like 3 times by these two, and whatever the hits, you don't feel it, right? Like just boom, cop it. Yeah, fuck, no, let me go, cunt, whatever. And then they fucking took my wallet, laughed, and then, ran off.
Right.
And, so that was a shit experience, right?
Of course.
But so I walked to the bus stop, jumped on it, realized I'd pissed myself. I'd pissed my pants. I was so scared.
Oh, God.
I was like, oh, my God, I fucking pissed myself. So I had like a jumper. I took my jumper off, like wrapped that around my waist so no one would see it. Jumped on the bus, went home.
Yeah.
Didn't tell my parents about it. They're like, oh, how's your night? I was like, yeah, it was good. And then I actually just was like, oh, I'm just going to go meet a friend. And I actually went up to the local police station and filed a report. I was like, I got my shit stolen, these kids, blah, blah. Anyway, next week at school, I'm like, I need to do something about this. And I wasn't really sure how to approach it. I needed to get some kind of revenge.
Yes.
But I also wasn't like a hard kid. Sure. I hung out with kids. We all thought we were hard,
but
we weren't actually hard.
No.
And so this was not those bong smoking friends. No. I went to like my harder friends.
Right.
The kids were a bit tougher. And I'm like, hey, I got fucking rolled by these dudes in Drummoyne. And these kids my mates were from Drummoyne, like, bullshit, where? And I told them the story. And they're like, all right, let's go get them next weekend.
Uh-huh.
So we formed a posse.
Oof.
And so at this stage of life, everything centers around different McDonald's, right?
Right. Yeah.
I got rolled over at Drummoyne McDonald's, the neighboring suburb where I lived, Gladesville. We gathered as many crew as we could, and we met at Gladesville McDonald's on Friday night at like 6:30.
Right.
There was 35 kids.
Whoa, posse.
Right?
Deep,
bruh.
Dang.
We went to Drummoyne, and we had scouted some information throughout the week. Like, who were these kids? Who the fuck is that? Like, on our sort of turf that are doing this shit. And we found out there's a group of private school boys. We're all from like a government school.
Sure.
So it was like, oh, private school boys. You don't really know them, but it's like, yeah, different posse.
Yep.
And I think, and someone managed to get an address of where I think one of these kids lives. Dang. Right? And the information was, he's a rich kid. He's a rich kid. He lives at this place down on the water. So what we did was we went to Drummoyne, 35 of us. Sorry, 32. It's 32. I don't want to inflate it necessarily.
32.
It's 32.
Just lower your expectations.
We sent a small, like a satellite crew to that bus stop,
Espionage.
and then satellite crew to McDonald's. And we're like, we're just going to hang out. And the idea was any kids that are kind of coming through the area, we're just like, hey, do you know these guys? Like, give us some information. Did that for about an hour or so, nothing came. So like, all right, let's go check out this address.
Jesus, Jocko Willink.
I know,
this
right?
Is fucking recon.
So we roll down to this house, and I'm like, boys, and there's some crew there that are kind of tough. There's some crew that are just like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, this is sick. Like, who knows what's going on? It sounds all organized.
Yeah.
But I'm like, boys, I'm gonna go to this house. Just don't fucking come behind me. You guys just stay on the street. I don't want to like alarm, unnecessary. We don't even know if this is the spot. And I could hear music being played somewhere in the house, like an instrument or something.
Yeah.
Knock on the door, and this father comes to the door, and he's like, yes, like, hello. And I'm like, oh, g'day. My name's Joe. I got beaten up last weekend, blah, blah, blah. This is what went down. I don't know the group of boys who did it, but I've been told that one of them lives here. Oh. And this father's like, no one by that name lives here. And I'm like, okay. And he said, I have a son, but he definitely wouldn't have done anything like that. That's not his thing. And I'm like, okay, fair. And he said, but let me take your information and let me see what I can find out. I'm like, all right, no worries. So he took my phone number, right? Like my home phone number. And at that moment, one of my mates pops around from around the corner, like just to see what's going on. And then another one pops around, and the father's like, oh, you've brought some friends with you. And he's like, oh, let me just see here. And he walks out the front off the stoop onto the street, and he's like, holy shit. Like, he just sees this street full of fucking kids.
Gang.
Yeah, there's a bunch of fucking teenagers there, and he's like, this is my house, and these motherfuckers are a bunch of like rats.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, let me see what information I can find, and I'll come back to you. And I'm like, great. And so whatever, we had, whatever. I think we went to McDonald's and we all went home,
Sure.
Next day, I get a phone call at home, and it's the father.
Right.
And he said, it was my son and his friends who mugged you. And we've spoken to them, and they are they're scared of the ramifications of this. And I want to meet up with you to settle this.
Oh.
I'm like, all right, let's meet up. So we meet at Gladesville McDonald's.
The plot thickens.
Right?
Holy
Yeah,
shit.
so my dad
this
drives
is so much deeper than right. Dude.
So my dad drives me up to Gladesville McDonald's, and he's like, do you want me? I'm like, no, I'm good, leave it to me, And so I go in, and I sit at the thing, and this father comes, and I remember his like big black coat, big tall guy. He actually reminded me of, remember X-Files?
Yeah.
Remember Skinner?
Yeah.
He reminded me of Skinner. He was bald.
straight
He was
up.
big, like bit of an alpha kind of guy.
Yep.
And he sits down at the table and he's like, my son and his mates are shit scared, and they're really fucking regretful that this happened. And what they've done is they've all chipped in money in order to compensate you for what has happened and the things that they took. And in me giving you this money, I need assurance that nothing is going to happen to them. And he slides an envelope across the table.
Jesus Christ. Thanks, Gandolfini.
Right?
Jesus.
They stole. I remember I had this wallet. I had like $15 in it and like a Travel 10 bus pass.
Sure.
Like the thing that you get used to get on the bus. And they, and whatever. I opened this envelope and there's like $150 there. And I'm like, holy shit.
Hush money.
$50. And he said to me, but you need to assure me that nothing's going to happen to them. And I said to him, I can assure you that I'm not going to do anything, and neither will my friends. But if those guys keep acting up in our area, that's out of my control.
Yeah.
And he said, I understand that. And I was like, okay, cool.
That sounds very mob boss.
Well, yeah, right. and he said to me, just so you know, like I have connections in the area, and he kind of basically said to me, like, if it goes to that place, like I can play that game kind of thing. And I'm like, that's fine, And then it was a handshake and a gentleman's agreement, and then he left, and then I left.
Wow.
Bruh.
Dude.
I know.
Wow.
And I've always held that as like such a great outcome.
Wow, that's an amazing outcome.
Because I was like, I didn't, because I wasn't a violent kid, right? I'm like, if I actually found these kids,
What are you going to do?
What am I going to do? I'm not going to like start beating people up, that's why I got tough mates.
Yeah.
They like to do that shit.
Yeah.
But I was like, it got resolved in a way that was very much in line with who I was.
Sure.
And never saw those motherfuckers again.
Oh, wow.
Never heard shit from those private school boys.
Wow. Regulate.
Bruh.
Dang, you're up 150 bucks. Cheeseburgers are on me, boys. That's amazing.
Happy meals for the boys.
Wow, that is amazing outcome. I had no idea it went to that kind of mob level.
It was good, but I tell you, in all honesty, and this is, I think this is important. You mentioned the trauma piece at the beginning.
Yeah.
That experience, like, that scarred me for sure. Like, and the fact that I pissed my pants.
That's brutal.
I've carried, like, for a long time, I was like, I felt like a little bitch. I'm
Shame,
like,
yeah.
I fucking pissed me. Yeah, shame,
Yeah, it's brutal.
And it was like, man, and these days, like, whatever, like, I'm really glad it happened, right? Because it was part of who I would become.
Yes.
And motivated me to be a certain way and do a lot of things. But I can see how that experience could have really fucked me up as a teenager.
Sure.
And there's kids out there, maybe people listening to this, who had similar kind of things that did scar them in the most negative way.
Yeah.
And I think that, whatever, it's a bit of luck that maybe it didn't, but it's also kind of how you choose to reflect on those things.
True.
Anyways.
Man, wow. Epic. I never heard that story. I'm hearing it for the first time here, people. So that's awesome. That's a great story.
Thanks, man. Happy to share.
Whew.
Tell me yours.
My goodness. Well, I, as a insecure year 7, would fight all the seniors. Now I went to Penrith High School, which is a selective high school, nerd high school. And up the road we had St. Dominic's, which is a private boys' school. A lot of rough dudes went there. But if you're good at rugby, you got to go, even if you had a terrible academic record.
Yeah.
I was
strong rugby teams from most of these schools, hey?
Yeah, private boys schools. And, these guys weren't, it wasn't like, oh, they were rich, they were soft. It was they were hard.
And were they often bigger?
They were
I found all the private school kids who played rugby were like men.
Yes.
But with the same age, but we're boys, they're men.
Family members of Tai Tuivasa went there.
Right.
I thought Tai Tuivasa went there. He may have as a young man. Anyway, not to worry. A girl from our school got beaten up and beaten unconscious by some guys from St. Dom's. She was sitting on the back seat. This is allegedly. Let's put it out there. But this is how this whole thing kicked off. I would fight the seniors. I was regularly in detention because if they took our ball, I would fight them. I've been this big since I was about 12. Not this heavy, but fully grown since I was about 12 years old and down to bang and out to prove myself very insecure. So the seniors hated me, but they also kind of respected me because I was always in after-school detentions with them for fighting. So they're like, okay, this guy's tough. So a girl from our school, apparently she's on the back seat and the St. Dom's boys had said, get off the back seat, it's our seat. And she's like, whatever, I'm here. And they squashed her and punched her and they actually knocked her unconscious. They banged her head against the window and she went unconscious.
Whoa.
Yeah. So this got back to all the kids at our school and all the seniors were like, fuck that, we're going down to that bus stop. We're going to show these St. Dom's boys what's up. And I was like, I caught wind of this and I'm like, I'm in on that. Because I got into a few fights with boys from St. Dom's. The bus would pick them up.
Just looking for a reason.
Yeah, whatever. Like, sure. I was down and it lost plenty of those fights, but always keen. So we all went down to their bus stop at Penrith Station and all the seniors were there, all the big guys, and I was at the front. Shouldn't have been, right? And the guys, allegedly, who had done it were not there. But there was like 3 or 4 St. Dom's boys there. And they were like, we're here for blood. Like, you bloody beat up a girl from our school. That's not on. We're going to bash them. And they were like, well, dude, it wasn't us. We don't even catch that bus. So it was like, but there was one kid there. And that kid had an older brother. And he saw me. And I was like, well, you fucking tell them. Like we'll come for them. And this guy just remembered me. So I used to play basketball.
Mark, you should have taken him out then.
Dude. So he went and got his older brother, who was also connected not only to the St. Dom's kids, but these other kids who went to a reform school in Blacktown.
Right.
Back in the 90s, like Blacktown, and even to this day, staunch, tough neighborhood. And so I was waiting for the bus to go out to La Mesha, out to the... where the basketball stadium was, and these kids came up. This kid from the bus stop, his older brother, and then their lad mates.
Oof.
Now, for those of you who don't know, for all of those who are singing, Eshays, lads, were invented in Penrith, just so you know. Heroin in the 90s went into the ground and up popped lads. TNs, stolen, Nike Tick, polo shirt, it came from Penrith.
Nautica, Gant.
It was all stolen. Anyway, long story short, these lads come up and I'm by myself at the bus stop and they're like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, oh God, it's going to be on. And they're like, no, you tell all your boys from your school, we're going to bring all our boys and we're going to meet here next Friday. It's going to be fucking on. And I was like, all right, whatever, like, sure, but the seniors don't respect me. They don't care. They're like, no, we know who you are. We know what bus you're on. Fucking next Friday, mate, it's fucking on. And I was like, all right, sure, whatever, fuck you guys. Anyway, so I didn't think about it very much. And then it kind of hit me that Friday, the following Friday. And my mum said to me, you seem a bit tense. And I was on my way to school. I said, yeah. She's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, maybe something will happen today. She's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I was leaving and I said, I'll be evading capture. She's like, what the fuck's that mean? I was like, don't worry about it, it's fine. So I told my friend, Sean, and he had an older brother, Damien. And Damien was 4 years older than us. He was a senior. And Damien said, don't worry, I got your back, bro. He's like, even if none of the seniors come, like, I'll make sure I'm there. So Damien got on the bus. It was me and Sean. Sean wasn't meant to be part of it. But when we pulled up at Penrith Station, there's 15 dudes lined up. And some of them are huge Islander kids, like massive humans. And they're all just standing there waiting. And I'm like, oh my God. And Sean's brother, Damien, had said, I'll bring like a bat or I'll bring something. We get off the bus and Damien goes first. And then I hear them go, oh, that's the kid, that's it, get him. And Damien goes, no, fuck off. And they just started, like, he kind of took the brunt of the force. They split his ear, they split his brow, they knocked out his teeth. Like, there was blood. I didn't see it at the time because I was, like, legging it. I had 5 kids run and kind of pull my bag off my back, fucking strip my shirt, knock me down. I'm just, like, it was like a Jackie Chan. I was like, just fucking trying to run, but also fight. And they like pull my bag open. I had a Discman. I don't know if you guys remember those. Smashed that on the ground. All my books, just fucking this huge troll of a human, this massive Islander kid with this huge like undercut ponytail marching across in like 5XL basketball shorts. I was like, oh my God. I got hit really hard and I hit the ground. And I swear to you, I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I don't know if it's like shock, but everything kind of slowed down and it kind of went a bit black and white. And I was getting stomped. Oof. I was getting kicked, like multiple kids kicking me on the ground. And I felt the big kid stomp my head and I felt my head like bounce off the concrete. Oof. Like it's surreal because like you say, in the moment, it kind of doesn't, it hurts, but there's so much adrenaline.
It's shocking, but it doesn't,
You're just taking it. And then I got KO'd. I got like soccer kicked in the face and I just went black. And then kid kicked me in the chest and it brought me back. So I kind of went out. I don't know how many more hits I took. And I just got kicked in the chest. And I just was like, back in action, grabbed the kid. I actually did something. Like, here's the thing. The seniors were watching. Those seniors who were with me the previous week, they're all on the wall. They're watching me get stomped.
Dogs.
No one come to help me. No, and like Damien was just bleeding on the ground. And everybody
just
was
the two of you getting
just the two of us getting fucking wrecked. And so I don't know how many times I got hit. But I started doing the old like taekwondo defense, like kicking at the knees and just trying to get up off the ground. And some kid told me about this. I didn't even remember doing it. I did like a back roll and up kicked a dude in the face.
Holy shit.
And I fucking dropped that kid, took a huge swing, collected a kid, knocked him out, got kicked again in the ribs, buckled. I'm trying to run away. I'm just taking hits and it's all a blur. Like, and I remember getting as far away as like almost like the next bus stop where the cab rank is, and then the cops pulled in, and then dudes scattered. And I still had this huge Islander guy kind of coming for me, and I was just like, no, I don't want this, man. Like, no, I'm like bleeding, black eyes, in an immense amount of pain, and I'm just like, nah, man, no. And then the cops are like, fucking stay where you are. And the big fellow was just like, looked at me, looked at the cops, and he just decided to like lumber off. And then the cops were like, yeah, we don't want to arrest that guy. They just let him go. And so the cops came and I was like, no, I was being attacked. They're like, no, it's cool, we know. They brought me in the station, whatever. And as I came back, the amount of blood that was on the ground from Damien was brutal. Like
really?
There was blood splattered everywhere.
Oof.
And he ended up getting 15 stitches. Anyway, so they held us in the station, more cops came, it all got dispersed. And then they made us give a statement. Do you know these kids? I was like, I don't know these kids. Also, I was like, kind of, something in my brain was like, I didn't want to rat them out because I was like, it'll be worse because I'm sure I'm going to see them again.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's an ongoing piece, isn't it?
Bro, they're always hanging at the station, you know, like local lads. And I was just like, oh, look, I don't know them. They're like, what's this related to? I'm like, I don't know. I knew, but whatever. So anyway, they took Damien off. He got stitched. They took him to hospital. Anyway, so we had an assembly at the school. And the principal got me up, like this is like the following Monday, got me up in front of the whole school and said, this boy got beaten and you seniors, you did nothing to protect him. You didn't jump in.
The principal said that?
Yeah. He's like, we have to stick up for ourselves. You could have at least tried to stop it. You did nothing. You're cowards. This boy got beat. Yeah. I was even in the paper.
Holy shit.
Damien and I were in the local paper.
How rare for a principal to take that stance.
He was pretty old school.
Yeah.
Peter Press. I'm not saying he was the best principal, but yeah. So everyone kind of knew me as like, oh, that boy gets in fights. That Wednesday after sport, I came to the station. 4 of those boys were there at the station. And I was like, oh, no. I'm not. Nah, I don't want any of this. And they're like, nah, bro, you're a good fighter. You should join our gang. I was like, what? I was like, nah, man, I don't want none of that. I'm not I'm not gangster. Like, that's, oh, man, I wasn't even into graffiti. I was like, nah, man, that's not me. They're like, no, you're a good fighter. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. But like, we're good, right? Like, I want any more smoke. Like, I can't take this many beatdowns, man. Like, I think I had a cracked rib. I was still fucked up. And, but here's the interesting thing that came of that. I got this weird reputation as being like a fighter kid. Whatever. It's like one time I get my ass fucking brutally destroyed and I get this rep. But then all those Penrith lads, they gave me a pass. Like, they'd be rolling someone outside the plaza. I'd walk past and they'd be like, hey. And I'd be like, hey. And it's like, as you were.
Let you go.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had my fucking shoes stolen and multiple things. But it was crazy how me taking that beating, and it put so much fear in my heart. Every time I don't know if you get this feeling when you know it's on, like the hairs stand up on the back of your ear, like there's going to be a fight.
Yeah.
Every time I'd come to the Penrith station, I'm like, oh shit. Like, it just had this dread.
Yeah.
Up until the point that I kind of knew, like I started to get stronger and bigger and better at fighting and getting tougher, that I was like, well, actually, I'm not as scared now. But then people started having knives and trolley poles and shit like that. And it was just like too much. But I was very lucky because I had that experience at 13. I actually got a pass with a lot of the Penrith lads up until the point that I was like 16 and doing graffiti and actually trying to hang out with them and want to be asshole, bad cunt type kid. But yeah, it was crazy because I just got this rep and it was totally unfounded. I wasn't a particularly good fighter. I actually just got the shit kicked out of me.
Do you think that was in part because often those kids, they actually don't want to pick on anyone that's going to give them a hard time?
Yes.
Like, they're looking for an easy victim,
They're looking
right?
for a victim, yeah.
So you're like, oh, fuck, like, this guy's actually tough. You know,
Well,
like, of course, you didn't
just
dominate
luck.
them, but you
No.
took the beating and kept going, and they're like, fuck, we don't actually, like, they didn't want that smoke either.
No. I think they thought that they would just stomp me and take my stuff, and I just didn't have any money or anything valuable. They just destroyed all my
Can't take what's not there, bro.
textbooks, Discman, buh. So man, it initially put a lot of fear in me because I thought, oh, I'm tough, and I wasn't. But also it really reinforced in me to like kind of not, bite my tongue a bit, but also I need to be stronger. I need to learn how to fight. Like, it really put it in me that in those moments, you've got to be handy, whatever you can do. And so that's always informed me every time I've tried to learn more about, like, they say in the military, being harder to kill, being fit, being strong, and knowing how to fight in all different capacities. Very helpful. And so, yeah, I can't say, I mean, maybe they could have stomped me to death that day. It was just a fluke, but it's cemented in my mind, that sense of everything slowing down, going black and white, and just feeling in my head, like,
Oh, that's awful.
bouncing off the concrete. It's lucky I have a thick skull.
I've seen people get stomped, and it's like, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's or people like getting hit and then hitting their head on the pavement.
When
like,
they're
it's
unconscious,
some like visceral shit, the sound, and it's awful.
Yeah, so I think the thing is, if you've, we spoke to, Sonny Brown.
Yeah.
And he talked about being attacked.
Yes.
It's not an entirely unique experience.
No, it fucking happens all the time.
It does happen. And some people end up hospitalized. I'm really lucky that, I'm a relatively robust human. I was able to come away from that not too brutally injured.
Yeah.
But Damien was far more injured than I was. And that was just because I thought I was tough. And you don't know who you're fucking with. So I think it really informed me about the toughest people. They're usually not, out there getting mouthy.
Yeah.
They're sitting in the back chilling.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what, like, what I always stuck, because I always thought too, like, similar to what happened to me, I was like, how could I have done that better? Like, and I was like, fuck, it was my friends, like, they split, and then the unit was broken up, and then we became weak.
Yeah.
But I'm like, fuck, we stuck together. But then I'm like, no, actually, the best thing is don't be in that situation.
Yes.
Don't be fucking kicking around with dead shit mates
Yeah.
at McDonald's late on a Friday night.
Exactly.
When because you are like at that
Asking
you're
for trouble.
Your parents, you're just old enough that your parents say, yeah, you can go out, you can stay out till 10 o'clock or whatever.
Yeah.
You can be out at night, but you're a fucking vulnerable kid.
Yeah,
you
true.
know, like I think you need to be mindful of like what potential situations am I getting into.
Yeah, and when people talk about self-defense, and you and I talked about this before, if someone just decides to grab a glass or a bottle,
Yeah,
if they're just ill-intentioned, they may not intend to kill you, but they could.
yeah,
You could be a Muay Thai fighter, you could be tough.
Yeah.
But if someone bottles you in the back of the head,
your skills don't mean shit.
yeah, you're kind of gone, right? So, yeah, I think the thing for me was it hardened me up a lot. It told me to kind of close my mouth and you'd be surprised. I was mouthier. But also it just really reinforced in me that if you can make yourself aware of what's going on around you, that's really important. And lack of awareness is a serious problem. It sounds like you actually had a bit of awareness there, but it was kind of outside of your control where you clocked on to like, oh, this is a dicey situation. Like this seems...
Yeah, you were saying like you sense it. Something's about to happen.
Yeah, you get this really primal like adrenaline, like, oh, it's on.
Yeah.
And some of you may have experienced that before a fight or before a mugging, or maybe it just happened all of a sudden.
But it's often not enough to remove you from the situation.
No.
There's it's like, oh, nah. Like then your rational brain kicks in. You're like, nah, nothing's going on.
No.
You know, and then you're like, fuck, we're in it now.
It's serious. So, man, full on.
Yeah, fuck, not being in those situations. But also, like, you're totally right. Like, I think about, like, you know, my son is probably going to encounter some kind of situation like that, you know? And, you know, what is it? You're like, well, yeah, be as prepared as possible. You know yourself, like, try to have some skills, be confident, be really good at running, you know? But also don't hang around with dead shits.
No.
You know, like, don't put yourself in those situations as much as you can.
Yeah.
Be interested to know, right? It was also a different time, wasn't it, for us? Like,
Sure.
we're in different parts of the city.
Definitely.
But arguably, it's the same thing. It's like teenage kids who don't have anything to do,
Bored.
who are hanging around looking for some trouble,
Yeah, sure.
you know? And so it's like, let's form a gang and
The
cause some trouble.
testosterone's kicked in, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of Lord of the Flies. You leave young men together in groups. It's not a positive environment.
You know what's very interesting to me now is like you think about those years when you're at high school and, you know, there's that he's a real tough kid. Oh, fuck, never fuck with him. And, oh, that guy's a dickhead. And, you know, everyone's got like their little characters. And in your mind, what's happening to you in that time is just so important. Like this is everything. Now that I've returned back to the suburb I grew up in, and I'm like late 30s, very physically confident, and I'm training at a gym there, like just doing some weights and shit. And I keep running into like people I went to school with.
Oh, okay.
And I keep running into people who are like I ran into a guy the other day. I'm like, oh, he was one of the hardest guys in the area. He was like a bad kid, real tough kid.
Yeah.
He was part of a gang and blah, blah. And he's like out of shape, middle-aged. He was asking me to show him some stretching, you know, because he's fucked. Like,
Oh, strain my groin.
and I'm like, it's so funny. Like middle age just takes over.
It does.
And all that shit that you think is so integral to your identity, it's nothing.
It's nothing.
You just become another human.
Yeah. I think it's the hormones and the emotion and everything is so important to you. Like it's everything at that time. There's no tomorrow. There's no future. There's just now.
Yeah.
And that is it's a powerful thing and can be good and bad. And I mean, I'm very lucky. I had very supportive parents. I fucked up a lot. I could have dropped out of school. I could have gone to prison. Like I was very lucky that I didn't go down that crime path. Like I did get into graffiti and that could have taken me in the wrong direction. But I always had martial arts. Like I always had Taekwondo. I had the gym as an outlet for my testosterone. I didn't feel the need to fight everyone in the street. I was able to channel whatever is going on inside me in those places. And that was really helped me. And I can see now there's a lot of kids that don't have a connection to the physical culture. They have video games, they have Call of Duty, you know, like whatever. And then they're still looking for excitement, but they don't have connection to sport or they don't have connection to martial arts. And I think this disconnection is actually a problem because if you haven't been punched in the face or you haven't been beat up, you don't think it's a bad idea to want to start a fight.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, this sounds like fun.
yeah, and it's bad times. So yeah, I'm very grateful for my experience in martial arts and very thankful that I learned some of those lessons because some of those guys I did hang out with, they did go to jail.
Yeah.
And now they're out of jail, but their lives are not good.
Yeah.
And you know, they're on a different trajectory. So very grateful to have learnt the lesson.
Good share, man.
Yeah, cool.
Nice. Thanks, fam. Hey, if you've been through any kind of situation like that and you want to, whatever, share your piece or ask questions about it, assuming you're on the YouTube, this is on the, you're watching this on YouTube, just chuck it in the comments and we'll, because I think it's, I know for me, like my story, I didn't tell that to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Or I didn't tell parts of it, like pissing myself because I was embarrassed. And I'm like, fuck, there's got to be a lot of other people out there that have been through some similar shit. That, so whatever. Sound out in the comments and let's talk.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks, bro.